The massive council chamber stretched out like a silver dome under artificial stars. Hundreds of alien beings filled the curved seats, their voices creating a buzz of different languages and sounds. Some clicked, others hummed, and a few made noises that humans could barely understand. But today, something was different. Today, the humans had called for an emergency session. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the center podium, his blue uniform crisp and clean. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Parker held a thick folder of documents while Commander Ryan Davis worked quietly at a portable computer terminal. The three humans looked calm, almost too calm for what they were about to announce. Members of the Galactic Council, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. The Terran Federation has made a decision. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all galactic affairs. The chamber fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Ambassador Crystal of the Zelthari Empire rose from his seat, his forearms spreading wide in what humans had learned was a gesture of dismissal. His scaled skin shifted from green to bright orange, showing his amusement. "Another human tantrum," he said, his words translated through the chamber's systems. "What has upset the children this time?" Several other council members laughed. The sound was strange, coming from so many different species. Some chittered, others barked, and the Nexari representative Velmoth made a sound like grinding metal that passed for laughter among his people. Dr. Lisa Parker stepped forward, still holding her folder. She had been humanity's chief diplomat for 8 years, and she had heard every insult the council could throw at her species. Today she did not react to any of it. "This is not a negotiation," she said quietly. "This is an announcement. All human military forces will withdraw from galactic space within 72 hours. All human colonies and research stations will be evacuated within 30 days. All trade agreements and defense pacts are hereby terminated." The laughter died away. Ambassador Velmoth of the Nexari leaned forward in his chair, his metal face showing no expression but his voice carrying surprise. "You cannot be serious. Humans have been part of this council for 50 years. 50 years during which you have consistently voted against every humanitarian proposal we have made," Lisa replied. 50 years of watching you ignore suffering while you debate profit margins. 50 years of being told that human values have no place in galactic politics. Commander Ryan Davis looked up from his computer. "All human vessels have received their recall orders. The UES Constitution has already begun evacuation procedures at Outpost Delta 7 in the upper gallery reserved for military observers." Captain Alex Turner stood and saluted Admiral Morrison. He had commanded the Constitution for 3 years, protecting the trade routes in the dangerous Outer Rim territories. In 6 hours he would be leading his ship home to Earth, leaving those routes undefended. "You are making a mistake," called out Ambassador Thelanara of the peaceful Rimari. Her voice was soft and musical, filled with worry. "The galaxy needs human peacekeepers. Who will protect the smaller worlds?" Jake Morrison turned to face her. Of all the council members, the Rimari had been the most supportive of human efforts. It pained him to see the fear in her large, dark eyes. "That question should have been asked before the council voted to reduce our peacekeeping budget by 60%, he said. "It should have been asked before you allowed the Korthic Empire to annex 3 neutral worlds last month. It should have been asked before you ignored our warnings about the slave trade in the Beta sector." "The humans are bluffing," announced Ambassador Crystal, his skin now shifting to a confident purple. "They need galactic resources as much as we need their services." Lisa Parker opened her folder and began placing documents on the podium. Withdrawal notices for all human personnel. Termination papers for all trade agreements. Orders for the evacuation of human civilians from mixed colonies, and this, she held up a final document. A complete list of all human research data, medical supplies, and defensive technologies that will no longer be available to the galactic community. The chamber grew very quiet. Several council members leaned forward to hear better. "The human medical station orbiting Euler Prime will shut down tomorrow," Lisa continued. Dr. Amy Rodriguez and Dr. Chris Thompson will return to Earth, taking with them the cure for the Eulari plague that has killed 2 million people this year. The Eulari representative made a choking sound. The human agricultural research on Kepler 442b will end. The drought-resistant crops that feed 4 billion Romari will no longer be developed or maintained. Ambassador Thelanara's skin went pale. Human patrol ships will withdraw from all trade routes. The anti-piracy operations in the Outer Rim will cease. The humanitarian missions to refugee camps will stop. With each announcement, the chamber grew quieter. Some council members began to look uncomfortable. "You cannot do this," Ambassador Velmuth said finally. The Galactic Charter requires member species to contribute to the common good," Jake Morrison interrupted. "For 50 years, humans have contributed more than any other species. We have provided medical aid, disaster relief, peacekeeping forces, and defensive support. In return, we have been called interfering, emotional, and naive." He gestured toward the upper galleries where alien reporters were recording everything. "You have consistently voted against funding for humanitarian missions. You have blocked our proposals for refugee protection. You have allowed aggressor species to expand while peaceful worlds suffer." Dr. Lisa Parker gathered her documents. "The Terran Federation has decided that our resources are better used protecting and developing our own worlds. If the galaxy does not want human interference, then the galaxy will not have it." Commander Ryan Davis closed his computer. "All human personnel will be off galactic stations within 18 hours. Our ships will be beyond the Sol System defensive perimeter within 1 week." The 3 humans turned to leave. The council chamber remained silent except for the soft humming of the air recycling systems as they reached the exit. Ambassador Crickstall called out one final taunt. "Good riddance. The galaxy will be better off without human weakness." Admiral Morrison paused at the doorway. He did not turn around. "Yes," he said quietly. "I suppose you will discover exactly how much better off you are?" The humans walked out, leaving behind 50 years of alliance, friendship, and protection. The council members sat in their chairs, many still expecting this to be some kind of negotiating tactic. They would learn soon enough that humans, once decided, never bluffed. 3 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. The empty seats where human delegates once sat had been filled with potted plants from various member worlds. Ambassador Crickstall often joked that the plants were more useful than the humans had been, but the jokes were starting to sound hollow. Captain Mortek of the Romari merchant vessel Peaceful Journey checked his sensor readings for the 5th time in an hour. The trade route through the asteroid belt of Kepler 186 had always been dangerous, but human patrol ships used to keep the pirates away. Now, his cargo hold full of medical supplies for the outer colonies felt like a target painted on his ship. "Contact approaching fast," his navigator announced, her musical voice tight with fear. "Configuration matches known pirate vessels." Mortex's 4 hands moved quickly over his controls. The Peaceful Journey was built for cargo, not fighting. Without human escort ships, merchant vessels like his were helpless against raiders. The pirate ship, a modified Korthic battlecruiser, dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of them. Its weapons were already charging. "Romari vessel, prepare to be boarded," came the harsh voice over the communication system. "Resistance will result in spacing." Mortek had no choice. His cargo of medical supplies, worth millions of credits, and desperately needed by sick colonists, would now disappear into pirate hands. This was the 4th merchant ship attacked this week alone. On the council world of Zentros, Ambassador Thelanara sat in her private office reading reports that made her stomach turn. Pirate attacks had increased by 200% since the human withdrawal. Trade routes that had been safe for decades were now death traps. She pressed a button on her desk. "Schedule an emergency meeting with the Security Council," she told her assistant. "Ma'am, they are already in session." The Nexari delegation called the meeting this morning. Thelanara hurried to the council chamber. Inside she found chaos. Representatives were shouting at each other in a dozen languages, while Ambassador Velmuth tried to maintain order with his metallic voice. "The solution is simple," Ambassador Crystal was saying, his skin bright red with anger. "We increase our own patrol fleets? With what ships?" demanded the representative from the Aquatic Federation. "Our vessels are designed for exploration, not combat." "Then buy combat ships from the Korthic Empire," Crystal replied. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the Korthic Empire built excellent warships. Everyone also knew they charged prices that would bankrupt smaller worlds. "We cannot afford Korthic military contracts," Thelanara said quietly. "The Ramari Trade Federation is already losing ships faster than we can replace them." Ambassador Velmuth's metal face turned toward her. "Perhaps you should have thought of that before you supported the human withdrawal." "I voted against their withdrawal," Thelanara reminded him. "I was one of only 12 council members who did, that was true. Most of the council had either voted to let the humans leave or had abstained from voting at all. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, General Nathan Wells stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the last human transport ships arrive from distant colonies. The evacuation had been completed ahead of schedule, and every human civilian and military member was now safely within the solar system's defensive perimeter. "Final count, sir," reported Lieutenant Bobby Martinez, reading from his datapad. 2.7 million civilians evacuated from 43 colonies and stations. "No casualties during withdrawal operations," Nathan nodded. The evacuation had been a masterpiece of military logistics. Every human facility had been properly shut down, every piece of valuable equipment brought home, and every database wiped. "Clean. What about the research stations?" Nathan asked. "Dr. Helen Brooks completed the shutdown of Research Station Endeavour yesterday. All medical research data has been transferred to Earth databases. The station's AI core has been removed." Nathan remembered Station Endeavour well. It had been humanity's premier xenobiology research facility, studying diseases that affected dozens of alien species. Human doctors had developed cures and treatments that had saved billions of lives across the galaxy. Now that research would continue, but only for humanity's benefit. "Sir," Lieutenant Martinez continued, "we're receiving communication requests from 17 different species. They're asking about medical supplies and research data." "Standard response," Nathan said without emotion. "Inform them that such requests should be directed through proper diplomatic channels." Of course, humanity no longer maintained diplomatic relations with any galactic species. The requests would go unanswered. Dr. Helen Brooks was in her laboratory on Earth, reviewing the final research reports from Station Endeavour. Her xenobiology team had been working on a cure for the Yulari plague when the withdrawal order came. The research was 90% complete. "Dr. Brooks," her assistant called from across the lab, "the Yulari government is offering us 100 billion credits for the plague research." Helen did not look up from her microscope. "Are we still part of the Galactic Council?" "No, ma'am." "Are we still providing aid to galactic species?" "No, ma'am." "Then file their request in the recycling bin." Her assistant hesitated. "Ma'am, the plague has killed 8 million Yulari this year." Helen finally looked up. Her eyes were sad but determined. "And how many humans died in the Korthic attack on Colony Harmony while the Council debated whether to respond? How many human refugees were denied aid after the disaster on New Geneva? How many times did we beg for support and get nothing but lectures about interference?" She returned to her microscope. "The galaxy made its choice. Let them live with it." Back on Zentros, the emergency council session had dissolved into shouting matches and finger-pointing. No solutions had been proposed, no decisions made. As the representatives filed out, many were already planning private meetings to discuss their own species' interests. Ambassador Thelanara remained in her seat, staring at the empty space where the human delegation used to sit. She pulled out a communication device and tried once more to contact the human embassy. The message that came back was the same one she had received dozens of times. "The Terran Federation is no longer accepting diplomatic communications from Galactic Council members. This is an automated response. She closed the device and looked around the empty chamber. For 50 years, human voices had been the conscience of the council. They had spoken for the weak, defended the innocent, and pushed for justice even when it was not profitable. Now there was only silence, and in that silence, she could already hear the sound of the galaxy beginning to tear itself apart. 6 months after the humans disappeared, the galaxy faced its first real test without them. The Korthic Empire had been watching and waiting, and now they were ready to move. War leader Gregthur stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, staring at the peaceful world of Melora 3 spinning slowly in space. The planet was home to 60 million gentlefolk, a species so non-violent they had never developed weapons more dangerous than farming tools. No defense satellites, reported his weapons officer. No military installations. No patrol ships in the area. Gregthur's scarred face split into a predatory grin. Perfect. Begin the invasion. For 40 years, the gentlefolk had lived under human protection. Human ships had patrolled their space, and human treaties had guaranteed their safety. The Korthic Empire had always wanted Melora 3 for its rich mineral deposits, but human peacekeepers had made invasion impossible. Now there were no humans to stop them. The first wave of Korthic landing ships descended through Melora's atmosphere like metal rain. The gentlefolk tried to surrender immediately, broadcasting messages of peace in 17 languages. The Korthic forces ignored everyone. Within 6 hours, Melora 3 was under occupation. Within 12 hours, the gentlefolk were being loaded onto slave ships bound for Korthic mining colonies. The news reached the Galactic Council 3 days later. Ambassador Thelanara stood at the emergency podium, her musical voice shaking with anger and grief. 60 million sentient beings have been enslaved. An entire peaceful civilization has been erased. And what is the Council's response? The chamber was only half full. Many representatives had stopped attending regular sessions since the humans left. Those who did come spent most of their time arguing about trade, disputes, and territory claims. Ambassador Crixtal examined his claws with apparent boredom. The gentlefolk chose not to develop adequate defenses. This is natural selection at work. They were under our protection. Thelanara's voice rose higher than was considered polite in Romari culture. We had treaties. Treaties written by humans, Velmuth pointed out, his metallic voice cold. Those treaties died when the humans left. In the back of the chamber, Ambassador Yeltaris of the Aquatic Federation raised a tentacle. Perhaps we should send a diplomatic protest to the Korthic Empire. Several council members laughed. The sound was bitter and hollow. The Korthic Empire respects only strength, said the representative from the Silicon Collective. They will ignore our protests just as they ignored our previous 17 protests about their expansion into neutral space. Ambassador Thelanara looked around the chamber desperately. Then we must take action. Deploy Council peacekeeping forces. What peacekeeping forces? Crixtal asked. The humans took their ships when they left. The rest of us never bothered to build proper military fleets because we relied on human protection. The truth of that statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. For 50 years, the Galactic Council had been content to let humans do the dangerous work of keeping peace while they focused on profit and politics. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, the situation was growing worse by the day. Admiral Susan Clark sat in her command chair aboard the UES Monitor, humanity's most advanced intelligence-gathering ship. The Monitor was stationed just outside the Sol System's defensive perimeter, where it could observe galactic communications without being detected. Report, Colonel Johnson, Susan said to her intelligence officer. Colonel Steve Johnson looked up from his data screens, his face grim. The situation is deteriorating faster than our worst projections, Admiral. The Korthic Empire has invaded 6 more systems in the past month. Pirate activity has increased 400%, and we're detecting distress signals from dozens of worlds. Susan studied the star map showing red zones where conflict had erupted. What about humanitarian crises? 17 worlds are facing famine because their agricultural programs depended on human-developed crops. 23 colonies are dealing with disease outbreaks that human medical teams used to contain, and the refugee crisis is becoming catastrophic. The colonel paused, then continued. Admiral, we're receiving over 10,000 requests for aid every day. Medical supplies, food shipments, evacuation assistance, peacekeeping interventions. The requests are getting more desperate, Susan nodded grimly. She had read some of those requests herself. Entire species begging for help, offering everything they owned for just basic medical supplies. Our response remains the same, she said quietly. No aid will be provided to former Galactic Council members or their territories. On the dying world of Euler Prime, Dr. Amy Rodriguez's former research facility stood empty and dark. The laboratories where she had worked to cure the Eulari plague were now sealed and abandoned. Equipment worth billions of credits gathered dust while outside. Another 1,000 Eulari died every day. Chief Medical Officer Helmara of the Eulari government stood in the empty laboratory, staring at the sealed medical databases. The cure for the plague was somewhere in these computers, but human security systems had locked everything down before the evacuation. Have the code breakers made any progress? She asked her assistant. No, Chief Medical Officer. Human encryption is beyond our capabilities. We would need human cooperation to access the data. Helmara felt her hope dying. The Eulari had sent 47 different requests to Earth, offering everything from their planet's entire treasury to permanent vassal status. Every request had been ignored. How many deaths today? She asked quietly. 3,217. The plague is spreading to the northern continents now. Helmara closed her large, sad eyes. When the humans had been here, the plague was almost defeated. Dr. Amy Rodriguez and Dr. Chris Thompson had been weeks away from distributing the cure to every Eulari settlement. Now they were gone, and their people were dying, back on Zentros. The Galactic Council was attempting another emergency session. This time, the topic was the refugee crisis. Millions of beings were fleeing their homeworlds as war, disease, and economic collapse spread across the galaxy. The refugee camps on Border Station 7 are beyond capacity, reported Ambassador Thelanara. They have food for perhaps another week. Then they should disperse to other locations, Crixtel suggested. Where? Every safe world is already overwhelmed? The Human Refugee Resettlement Program handled millions of displaced beings. Without it, we have nowhere to put them. Ambassador Velmuth's metal face showed no emotion. This is not our problem. Each species should care for its own refugees. The refugees include members of your own species, Thelanara pointed out. Nexari civilians fleeing the Korthic advance? Velmuth was quiet for a moment. The Nexari government will consider options, but everyone in the chamber knew the truth. Without human organizational systems, human transport ships, and human funding, the refugee crisis was unsolvable. Millions of beings would die not from war or disease, but from simple neglect. As the session ended with no solutions and no decisions, Ambassador Thelanara returned to her office and activated her private communication system one more time. She composed another message to Earth, knowing it would be ignored like all the others. Please, she typed with trembling fingers. The galaxy is dying. We were wrong. Come back. The automated response arrived within seconds. The Terran Federation is no longer accepting diplomatic communications from Galactic Council members. Outside her window, she could see the lights of ships bringing more refugees to an already overcrowded station. Soon, even those lights would go dark. 1 year had passed since humanity turned its back on the galaxy. The once proud Galactic Council now met in a smaller chamber because so many member worlds had either been conquered, destroyed, or had simply stopped sending representatives. Ambassador Thelanara looked around the half-empty room and counted only 37 delegates. A year ago, there had been over 200. The empty seats told the story of a galaxy falling apart. We must contact the humans, she said for the 100th time. The situation has become impossible. Ambassador Crixtel, whose once bright scales had faded to a dull gray, shook his head weakly. They will not answer. We have sent over 3,000 messages to Earth. Everyone has been ignored. Then we must try something different, insisted Velmuth. His metal body showed dents and scratches from recent Korthic attacks on Nexari colonies. Send a delegation to Sol System, force them to hear us? The idea had been discussed before, but never seriously. Everyone knew that approaching human space without permission could be seen as an act of war. But desperate times called for desperate measures. On the edge of Sol System, Captain Nicole Green stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching her sensors carefully. The human defensive perimeter around their home system was stronger than ever, with the most advanced ships and weapons the Terran Federation had ever built. "Contact approaching, Captain," reported her sensor officer. "Configuration shows a Remari diplomatic vessel." Nicole sighed. This was the 15th alien ship to approach human space this month. Each one carried desperate pleas for help, offers of surrender, or promises of treasure beyond counting. Each one was turned away without being allowed to enter the system. "Standard. Response, Lieutenant Davis," she ordered. "Inform them that human space is closed to all non-human vessels." Lieutenant Frank Davis activated the communication system. "Remari vessel, this is the UES Horizon. You are approaching restricted space. Turn back immediately or you will be fired upon." The response came quickly, the musical voice filled with desperation. "Please, Captain Green, I am Ambassador Mordak of the Remari Trade Federation. I carry urgent messages from the Galactic Council. Millions are dying every day. We need to speak with human leaders." Nicole felt a familiar pang of guilt. She had served alongside Remari officers during her time as a peacekeeper. They were good people, honest traders who had never hurt anyone. But orders were orders. "Ambassador Mordak, you have 30 seconds to change course before we open fire." There was a long pause. Then quietly, "We understand, Captain. We are leaving now." Nicole watched the small diplomatic ship turn away and disappear into faster-than-light travel. She wondered if she would ever see another Remari again, or if their entire species would be extinct before this crisis ended, deep inside Sol System. In the halls of Earth's government, President William Foster was reviewing intelligence reports that painted a picture of galactic collapse so complete it was almost unbelievable. "Tell me about the refugee situation again," he said to his aide. Secretary of State Patricia Lee. Patricia opened her datapad. "Latest estimates suggest over 2 billion displaced beings are currently homeless. The refugee camps have collapsed entirely. Most refugees are now dying in space, in ships too damaged to reach any safe port. Disease outbreaks? 43. Major plagues are spreading unchecked. Without human medical intervention, we project the death toll will reach 5 billion within 2 years. Economic collapse? Total. The galactic trade network has broken down completely. Most worlds are now using primitive barter systems. Technology levels are dropping rapidly without human-maintained infrastructure." President Foster set down the report. The numbers were staggering, but they were also exactly what human analysts had predicted when the withdrawal was planned. "Any change in our position?" he asked. Patricia shook her head. "The vote was unanimous among all human colonies. And Earth itself, we remain committed to isolation?" The galaxy made its choice. Meanwhile, on the outer edge of the galaxy, Commander Frank White was analyzing intelligence reports from long-range sensors. His job was to monitor galactic conditions and report back to Earth, but lately his reports made for depressing reading. "Computer. Display current conflict map," he said. The holographic display showed the galaxy in red and black. Red zones indicated active warfare. Black zones indicated regions where civilization had completely collapsed. There were very few green zones left. Summary report, computer. Current active conflicts. 79 major wars, over 300 minor conflicts. Piracy incidents, up 412% from pre-withdrawal levels. Economic activity, down 87%. Estimated casualty count, 800 million dead in the past year. Frank stared at the numbers. Before the human withdrawal, the galaxy had been relatively peaceful. There had been problems, certainly, but nothing like this. The humans had been the glue holding galactic civilization together, and without them, everything was falling apart. Back on Zentros, what remained of the Galactic Council was holding another emergency session. This time, the topic was survival itself. The Korthic Empire now controls 40% of known space, reported the military analyst, a young aquatic Federation officer whose species had lost 6 colony worlds in the past month. They are enslaving entire populations and using them to build more warships. Ambassador Crixtol's hands shook as he spoke. My homeworld sent its last message yesterday before the communications array was destroyed. The Korthak forces they are not taking prisoners anymore. They are simply eliminating populations that resist. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. How many species have been completely wiped out? Asked Thelanara quietly. 17 confirmed extinctions. The gentlefolk, the crystal singers, the garden tenders, the peace weavers, the boats. The analyst's voice trailed off. The list was too long and too terrible to recite completely. Ambassador Velmuth stood up slowly, his metal body making grinding sounds that indicated severe damage. I have been authorized by the Nixari government to make a formal offer to the humans. Everyone turned to look at him. We will surrender completely. Unconditional surrender of all Nexari worlds, technology, and resources to human control. In exchange, we ask only for protection from the Korthic Empire. The offer hung in the air like a death sentence. The proud Nexari, who had been among the most vocal critics of human interference, were now willing to become human vassals just to survive. Will the humans accept? Asked Thelanara. Velmuth's voice was bitter. They will not even read the offer. All communication with Earth is blocked. As the session ended, the remaining council members dispersed to their offices to send more hopeless messages to Earth. Each delegation offered more than the last: entire treasuries, advanced technology, permanent servitude, anything that might convince the humans to return. None of the messages were answered. In the empty council chamber, Ambassador Thel_Nara sat alone, staring at the memorial wall where the names of extinct species were being added daily. The humans had warned them this would happen. They had predicted the wars, the economic collapse, the humanitarian disasters. The council had laughed at those predictions. Now, as her own species faced extinction from spreading plague and Korthak invasion, Thelanara finally understood the truth. The humans had not left in anger or spite. They had left because they knew exactly what would happen next. And they had decided that the galaxy deserved every bit of it. 2 years had passed since the humans disappeared, and the galaxy was dying. What had once been the proud Galactic Council now met in a bunker deep underground on Zentros. Hiding from Korthak bombing raids that came every few days, only 9 representatives remained. 9 beings out of what had once been hundreds of member species. The rest were either dead, enslaved, or had fled to the furthest corners of space. Ambassador Thelanara looked terrible. Her once beautiful silver skin was now gray and scarred. The Rimari had lost their homeworld 6 months ago, and her people were scattered across refugee camps that grew smaller each day as disease and starvation took their toll. We need to face the truth, she said quietly, her musical voice now harsh and broken. The galaxy is finished. The other 8 representatives nodded in silence. What could they say? The facts spoke for themselves. Ambassador Crixtol, whose proud Zathori Empire had been reduced to 3 small colonies hiding in dead systems, spoke next. His skin had lost all color and hung loose on his failing body. The Korthic Empire controls 60% of known space, he wheezed. They have enslaved or killed over 15 billion sentient beings. Their fleet grows stronger every month while ours. He gestured weakly at the empty chamber. We have nothing left. In the corner, Ambassador Velmuth sat motionless. The Nexari had been entirely wiped out 3 weeks ago. Every single Nexari world had been conquered. Every Nexari citizen either killed or enslaved. Velmuth was the last of his species, kept alive only because the Korthic found his knowledge of galactic communications useful. We should try once more to contact the humans, suggested the representative from the Aquatic Federation, though her voice held no hope. Tel_Nera shook her head sadly. We have sent over 15,000 messages. We have offered them everything we ever owned. We have begged, pleaded, and groveled. They will not answer. Meanwhile, at the edge of Sol System, Vice Admiral Corinne Bailey stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the most desperate attempt yet to reach Earth. A massive convoy of alien ships, refugees from dozens of dying worlds, had gathered just outside human space. How many ships, Lieutenant? She asked. Lieutenant Daniel Ross checked his sensors. Over 800 vessels, Admiral. Most are civilian transports packed with refugees. Some appear to be damaged military ships. Corinne studied the convoy through her view screen. She could see the desperation in the way the ships limped forward, their hulls scarred by battle damage and poor maintenance. These were the last survivors of once proud civilizations. Incoming transmission from the lead ship, reported her communications officer. Put it through. The face that appeared on screen was barely recognizable as Ambassador Crixtal. The once proud Zalthari leader looked ancient and broken. Please, he whispered, tears streaming down his scaled face. We offer everything. Every technology we possess, every resource we have left, every remaining member of our species as permanent. Servants, please, just let our children live. Corinne felt her heart twist, but her orders were clear. President Foster had been absolutely firm. No exceptions, no mercy, no aid to any former council member. Ambassador Crixtal, she said formally, human space remains closed to all alien vessels. You have 1 hour to withdraw before we open fire. Admiral Bailey, Crixtal begged, we have children on these ships. Babies who have never known anything but war and starvation. Please, in the name of whatever mercy humans still possess. Don cut the transmission. She could not bear to listen any longer. On Earth, President William Foster sat in his office, reading the daily intelligence reports. With Secretary Patricia Lee, the reports had become a catalogue of extinction and despair. The gentlefolk are confirmed extinct as of yesterday, Patricia read. The garden tenders were wiped out last week. The crystal singers, the peace weavers, the dream builders, the song makers, all gone. Foster closed his eyes. Each name represented billions of unique beings, entire civilizations with their own art, music, literature, and dreams. All destroyed because the Galactic Council had thought they knew better than the humans. Any change in our public opinion polls? He asked. 97% of humans still support the isolation policy. The feeling is that the galaxy made its choice and must live with the consequences. That was true. Earth's population had watched the galactic collapse with grim satisfaction. For 50 years, humans had sacrificed their own resources and lives to protect ungrateful aliens who mocked them at every turn. Now those same aliens were learning the true cost of their arrogance. What about our military analysts? Do they think we should intervene? Patricia shook her head. Admiral Morrison's final report was clear. He estimates that even if we deployed our entire fleet immediately, we could only save perhaps 10% of the remaining population. The Korthic Empire has grown too strong and galactic infrastructure has collapsed too completely. Foster nodded. That had always been the terrible mathematics of the situation. The humans could have prevented this disaster, but they could not reverse it. The time for salvation had passed 2 years ago, when the Council laughed at human warnings and voted to reduce peacekeeping budgets. Back at the edge of Sol System, the refugee convoy was beginning to disperse. Most ships turned away as ordered, but a few of the smaller vessels tried to make desperate runs toward Earth. Captain Daniel Ross of the UES Defender watched sadly as his weapons destroyed 3 Rimari transport ships that had refused to turn back. He took no pleasure in the task, but orders were orders. How many survivors? He asked after the debris stopped floating. None, sir. The ships were too badly damaged to maintain life support after we disabled their engines. Daniel nodded. Grimly, those ships had contained the last few hundred Rimari civilians, including children. Their deaths brought the beautiful, musical Romari species one step closer to complete extinction. In the underground bunker on Zentros, Ambassador Thelanara received the news of her people's death with quiet dignity. She had been expecting it. The Romari had nowhere else to go, and the humans had made their position clear. That was the last of them, she told the other representatives. My species is now extinct. The remaining 8 beings sat in silence. Soon they knew it would be their turn. Ambassador Crixtal struggled to his feet, his body failing from malnutrition and despair. I move that we formally dissolve the Galactic Council, he said weakly. We no longer represent anyone. Our civilizations are dead or dying. The vote was unanimous. With a simple show of hands, the Galactic Council that had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years ceased to exist. As the representatives prepared to leave for the last time, Thelanara activated the chamber's communication system one final time. She sent a single message toward Earth, though she knew it would not be answered. You were right about everything, she transmitted into the darkness. We were fools. We are sorry. The message disappeared into space. Just another ignored transmission from a dying galaxy. Outside the bunker, Korthek bombers were approaching for another raid. Soon, even this last refuge would be gone, and the final chapter of galactic civilization would close forever. 5 years had passed since humanity turned away from the galaxy. Earth and its colonies had never been more prosperous, more advanced, or more united. The solar system buzzed with activity as humans built wonders that would have amazed their former alien allies. Fleet Admiral Jennifer Scott stood on the observation deck of the massive Luna shipyard, watching construction teams put the finishing touches on humanity's newest space station. The station was 3 times larger than anything humans had built before the withdrawal, powered by energy sources that made old fusion reactors look like candles. Final production report, Admiral, said Dr. Andrew Davis, humanity's chief research director. Medical advances are up 400%. Our life expectancy has increased by 30 years. Our technology development has accelerated beyond all previous projections. Jennifer nodded with satisfaction. Without the constant drain of galactic peacekeeping duties and humanitarian missions, human resources had been redirected toward improving their own civilization. The results were spectacular. What about our expansion projects? She asked. The Mars colonies are thriving. The Jupiter mining operations are exceeding all expectations. And our deep space exploration has discovered 17 habitable worlds within 50 light-years of Earth. All of those worlds were now being colonized by humans alone. No alien refugees, no galactic politics, no interference from ungrateful council members. Just pure human expansion into a universe that seemed limitless. Any contact attempts from outside the system? Jennifer asked. None for over 6 months, Dr. Davis replied. The last transmission came from a group calling themselves the Free Worlds Alliance, but our analysis suggested it was just another Korthek trick to lure us into responding. Jennifer was not surprised. Intelligence reports suggested that the Korthek Empire now controlled 90% of the galaxy. Any remaining free worlds were hiding in dead systems or had fled beyond the galactic rim, on the former council world of Zentros, now a burning wasteland ruled by Korthek overlords, a small group of aliens huddled in the ruins of an old library. They were the last free beings on the planet. Perhaps in the entire sector. Elder Morvek, one of the few remaining Aquatic Federation survivors, told stories to the handful of children who still lived. The children belonged to different species. Orphans whose parents had died in the wars or been taken as slaves. Tell us about the humans again, whispered a young Romari girl named Solara. She had never seen a human, but the stories fascinated her. Morvik's voice was old and tired, but he continued the ritual he performed every night. These stories were all that remained of galactic history. Long ago, he began, there was a species called humans. They came from a small world near the center of the galaxy, and they were different from all other beings. How were they different? Asked a crystal singer child, one of perhaps a dozen left alive in the entire galaxy. They cared about others more than themselves. When pirates attacked trade ships, humans would risk their lives to save strangers. When plagues spread across worlds, human doctors would work day and night to find cures, even for species they had never met before. An older child, a young Nexari who had escaped the destruction of his homeworld, spoke up. "But why did they leave us?" Morvek's expression grew sad. "Because we were foolish. We thought we were better than them. We laughed at their kindness and called it weakness. We voted against their proposals and mocked their concerns. We told them the galaxy would be better without their interference." "And then they left?" Solara asked. "Yes, little one. They left, and we learned too late that they had been the only thing standing between civilization and chaos." The children were quiet for a moment. Then the Crystal Singer child asked the question that always came next: "Will they ever come back?" Morvik shook his head slowly. "No, child. When humans make a decision, they keep it. They gave us 50 years of protection and friendship, and we threw it away. They will not make that mistake again." Outside their hiding place, they could hear the sound of Korthic patrol vehicles moving through the ruins. The children pressed closer together, knowing that discovery meant slavery or death. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Korthic Empire, war leader Gregthur stood in his throne room, studying reports from across his conquered territories. The Empire was vast now, stretching across most of the galaxy, but ruling it was becoming increasingly difficult. "Report on the slave worlds," he commanded his aide. "Production is down 40% across all sectors, war leader. The slaves are dying faster than we can replace them. Many species lack the physical strength for heavy labor, and their lifespans are too short for long-term projects." Gregthur growled in frustration. Conquering the galaxy had been easy once the humans disappeared, but managing it was proving impossible. The humans had somehow made all these weak species useful and productive. Without human organizational skills and medical care, most alien populations were simply dying off. What about the technical specialists? The Nexari engineers are all dead. The Rimari navigation experts died in the last plague outbreak. The Aquatic Federation's terraforming knowledge died with their scientists. Each conquered species possessed unique skills and knowledge that had made them valuable to the old galactic civilization. But without the complex trade networks and cooperative agreements that humans had maintained, that knowledge was being lost forever. "War leader," his aide continued nervously, "our analysts estimate that at current death rates we will rule over empty worlds within 10 years. Gregthur turned to stare out at the stars. He commanded the largest empire in galactic history, but it was an empire of graves. The irony was not lost on him. In destroying the galaxy to rule it, he had made it worthless. Back on Earth, President William Foster was celebrating his second re-election with a massive victory party. Approval ratings for his isolationist policies remained above 90%, and human civilization had never been stronger. "Sir," his aide approached quietly, "we've received another analysis from our deep space monitoring stations." Foster took the report and read it quickly. The document confirmed what everyone already knew. Galactic civilization was effectively extinct. Fewer than 1 billion sentient beings remained alive outside of Korthic-controlled space, down from over 1 trillion 5 years ago. "Any regrets, sir?" asked Secretary Patricia Lee. Foster looked out the window at the gleaming cities of Earth, at the space elevators reaching toward the stars, at the orbital stations where human children learned and played in safety. "None," he said firmly. "We gave them every chance to do the right thing. We warned them what would happen. They chose arrogance over cooperation and pride over wisdom." He set down the report and returned to the celebration. The galaxy made its bed, now it can lie in it. Years passed. Decades passed. The humans expanded further into space, building a civilization that dwarfed anything the old galaxy had ever seen. They discovered new worlds, developed incredible technologies, and lived in peace and prosperity, and in the ruins of the old galaxy, in hidden bunkers and forgotten corners, the few remaining aliens told stories of the humans to their children. Stories of a species that had tried to save everyone, only to be mocked and dismissed. These stories always ended the same way. And when the galaxy needed them most, the humans had already gone home. They left us to face the consequences of our choices. They left us in silence. And in that silence, we finally learned the value of what we had lost. The galaxy had wanted the humans gone. The galaxy had gotten exactly what it wished for.